Hello and welcome to Beyond the Boundary. My name is Josh. It's fantastic to have you on board again. It is round 4. Nick, on my right, how are you, mate?
I'm great, Josh. How are you?
I'm fantastic. The Bombers got a win, so I'm happy. Renee, on my left, how are you?
I'm very good, Josh. Cannot wait for round 4.
All right, boys. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It means a hell of a lot. Nick, you've got the tips for us. Keep it short and sweet, please.
I certainly do. What happened, boys? Pathetic results from you guys on the weekend. 5 out of 9 for both of these boys, which was not up to scratch. I got 7 out of 9, which I'm pretty happy with. And as I predicted last week, I might even put that in there. I am now leading the tipping on 19.
The theme of this show is going to be Nick's predictions last week that have turned out to be good this week.
Isn't that the theme of every show, though?
His head may wobble so much that it will fall off, Josh. So we do have paramedics on site just in case that
Anyway, the point is I've got some catching up to do. Richmond versus Collingwood, Friday night at the MCG. Last time these two teams met, it was also in round 4 of 2013, and it was Collingwood by 35 points. Vinay, what is your take?
I think this will be a very interesting game. The number one thing that I want to look at is both these teams had a mutual sort of common factor in their performances last week, and that is that they both lost the disposal count, but they both also lost the tackles. Now, you look at it logically, if you've got less of the ball, then you've got to be doing more tackling, correct? Yeah, but that wasn't really the case for both these guys. In fact, Collingwood had 30 less disposals and also had 10 less tackles. So they had plenty more opportunity to lay some tackles and put on that defensive pressure, but they didn't really get around to it. And against attacking sides, the attacking sides that they played, that can cost you. So to me, this game will come down to who can show a better defensive game.
I think last week, I'm not sure who was more disappointing. I think probably Richmond, because it was a game that they were expected to win. And I know I tipped Collingwood last week and they had their chances to win.
Yep.
But I think Richmond were probably the more disappointing side last week. They were pretty horrible, really, and probably didn't deserve to win that game. Okay, they got back into the game against the Dogs. But, yeah, I don't think the scoreboard really showed how dominant the Dogs were over the Tigers in the first half.
I think it's unfair to throw Collingwood in the basket there as a disappointing side. I think they were pretty good for most of the game. But when the pressure was really on, they just weren't quite up to scratch. I thought it was a closer contest than you're making out there.
When I say disappointing, I mean they had their chances and didn't really take them.
Yeah.
They had numerous shots on goal. I think they kicked more points than behinds. More points than goals.
Yeah, correct. More points than behind.
I probably should have checked that before we jumped on, but I'm pretty sure they did. So you got to kick those goals against good opposition, and there's no doubt Geelong's a good opposition. So that's the disappointment I see in Collingwood. You got to take your opportunities.
Fair enough. Now, history shows that if you go 1 and 3, you miss the finals. Do we believe that either of these teams are a genuine chance with what we've seen so far?
Top 4, I think it is. Top 4. I think both teams had top 4 aspirations.
Yeah.
I know Vinay put Collingwood in that top 4.
Still do.
At the start of the year. I had Richmond around the mark as well. I think you did too. Yeah. So it's very, very important for both these teams to get a win, to keep those aspirations alive. I know at the start of the year that both Richmond and Collingwood were looking for top 4. So it's very, very important for both sides, and I can guarantee you they're going to go hard at it from the first
I'm going to say history schmistery for this one. Like, history was meant to be changed. History was meant to be changed. And Collingwood, you know, they had a very good win against a side that many believed would be the premiers this year, or at least make the grand final.
Yep.
And they came very, very close to a strong Geelong side. Most of their players really rose to the challenge. I thought Jamie Elliott was spectacular. It was just that Geelong probably had one more player who really lifted and turned it on during that clutch moment. But I think that Collingwood are still an extremely good side, and I do believe that they can still push top 4. They've had a very tough draw to begin with. I think we should mention that. They've had Fremantle, then Sydney, and then Geelong. That's really, really difficult. That's not how you want to start. So let's also consider that when we talk.
Now, we know Ben Reid is out at the moment, and Jesse White did play the other night. But Josh, do you think they're relying on Cloak too much? Not taking away from Lonergan, who played a very good game. I'll touch on that later. But a lot of the balls inside 50 went straight to Cloak, and he really couldn't capitalise.
Yeah, I do. I think they've got to find another avenue to goal, and they did somewhat on the weekend against
Jamie Elliott,
against Geelong, with Jamie Elliott kicking 5. But I just feel that they're bombing too often to Travis Cloak, and defenders are reading it so easily now because it's becoming so predictable.
They're double teaming him as well. They've got one man holding the body, and they've got another man just coming across and fisting him.
Absolutely. So if they can find maybe another avenue to goal, other than Cloak, it's going to take pressure off Cloak as well, and he's going to have an impact with that as well.
And you always hear the commentators say it's such a simple game when you do it like that. With Jamie Elliott's marks and goals in the last quarter, I think there was 2 in a couple of minutes. It was just that simple kick into space. Jamie Elliott chest mark, walked back and slotted the set shot goal. On Jamie Elliott, by the way, he is one of the best set shots in the game, if not the best.
One of the best marks as well.
You see him... Well, he's a very good mark overhead, of course, but you know the safe chest mark. You see him lining up for goal. I was right in front of him lining up, and there's no chance he was going to miss that. You know, you can just see he's just that type of player. He's so composed. He doesn't get nervous in front of goal that other players do. It just doesn't affect him.
Yeah. Before we give our tips, I think Travis Cloak maybe didn't help himself either. He dropped a lot of marks that he probably would have taken.
Yeah. I noticed that
in previous games and previous years. So he probably didn't help himself or his teammates. But yeah, I think they need to find another avenue to go.
I'm going to talk about this later, but I think the defender that was playing on him played the best game of his career. So don't.
One thing I've got to mention though is
that
you can read a lot by the way a player's body language is on field.
Yeah.
And Travis Cloak, in that third or the last quarter, when they were kicking it to him, it was out in front of him. He constantly tried to chest mark it. When he's confident and when he's bustling and when he's playing well, he'd take that with 2 hands out in front of the body.
Yeah.
This time he was trying to chest mark absolutely everything, which to a good defender is just an arm around the waist and you've got the spoil done. So that was playing a big part as well. I think half the demons are actually inside his head at the moment.
All right, boys, what are our tips for this game?
I'm going Collingwood by 5 points this week. Richmond, they really should have won that game against the Bulldogs, and when the pressure was on, they just couldn't quite get over the line. Collingwood, they showed some very good signs against the Cats, but likewise, just when the heat of the game was on, they couldn't get it done. But I think Collingwood will be the team this week.
I'll be tipping Collingwood as well. I just think, I honestly can't remember the last time Richmond beat Collingwood, so they've been a bit of a bogey side. Travis Cloak does normally have a day out against the Tigers. He kicked 7 last time on Alex Rance, and Rance probably isn't going to play.
Yep.
So, but I'll be tipping the Pies probably by about 4 goals.
Dunno.
I think Dylan Grimes is the one that'll end up going on Cloak, but like you said, he does like to cash in. If there was a good chance for him to reverse his fortune so far this year, this is his best chance. Collingwood by 25 is my tip.
Just quickly, the crowd in the Collingwood-Geelong game, and the crowd...
how good was it?
Well, it wasn't good. That's my point.
I thought it was pretty good.
60,000, and then again with Essendon and Carlton, 60,000.
Oh, it was lacking for the Category A game, but it was still, I thought the atmosphere was excellent.
But my point is, Richmond-Collingwood this week, the AFL are going to be really kicking themselves at the start of the season if we don't see 80,000 of this game.
That's true, yeah.
I tell you what, though, Essendon and Carlton for 65,000 on a Sunday night, that's an underrated crowd. Yeah, Sunday night is a horrible time for football.
Speaking of horrible football, moving on to Carlton versus Melbourne, Saturday afternoon at the MCG. Last time it was round 6 2013, Carlton by 61 points. Shellacking, if you do not mind. Josh, what's your take on this game?
What's my take? Gee, do we have 3 hours, 4 hours to lay into both of these
Really,
sides?
you have that much to say?
I'm going to give you much to say
about their performances.
I'll analyse each and every player from both sides.
And okay, yeah,
I'm going to give you 3 minutes to lay into these two sides. Go.
3 minutes. All right, let's start with Carlton. Watched them last night, tonight being Monday. Watched them last night. They were absolutely horrible. I mean, fantastic for my boys. They were fantastic. They made them look bad and everything like that. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But Carlton played bruise-free football. Bruise-free football. And they've been labelled that the last 3 years.
Yep.
Something has to change. This group of players need to stand up, especially the senior players. And the problem with Carlton is there's not a lot of youth coming in. It's always the same 25, 26. I remember at the start of last year and this year, I sat down, looked at Carlton's list and said, who's in their best 22? And I've said for a while now, and you'll both back me up on this, that their bottom 6 isn't up to scratch.
Yep.
It's probably the worst in the competition.
Yeah.
So for Carlton to improve that, I think they've got to play the likes of Patrick Cripps, Nick Holman, Nick Graham. Sam Doherty's just played his first game back in the VFL this week, coming back from injury. But Carlton, and I'll say this again, I've been saying it for the last 2-3 years, they are closer to a rebuild than they are a premiership.
Do you think it's time for them to start again?
Absolutely. I think they should play these kids, bite the bullet with some of the older guys.
Yep.
Some of those older guys might mean Brock McLean.
Ex-Scotland.
He's already out.
He's already done,
on the rookie list.
On the rookie list. And there's a number of others that I could name, but obviously we don't have time. But
Yep.
they were horrible, and it's a dark, dark time for Carlton at the moment.
29 inside 50s on the weekend, which is pathetic. They did score from 17 of those, which is actually a good conversion rate, but just not getting the ball down there anywhere near enough.
That's the only positive I can see from that game.
One thing I will say is that you mentioned their bruise-free football. Even their bruise-free football was pretty poor. They had, I think, 50 less marks or something ridiculous compared to Essendon. Their uncontested ball usage was absolutely horrendous. They were smashing the disposal efficiency. As I said, the uncontested marking. Like, we know Essendon's a team that their structure is now such that they like that short disposal, uncontested marking game.
Yep.
But even then, to be beaten by that much is very, very, very poor.
There was just no composure, no poise from
No.
Carlton the other night. You saw, there's this great video going around at the moment of Mark Murphy. He just sees an Essendon player, just tries to double back as quickly as he can, just throws this hand pass.
A hand pass over his head.
Yeah,
Sort
and
of, yeah.
it's, he didn't look for an option. He just panicked.
Yeah.
And that's the captain of this football club.
Yeah. I think one thing that I did want to mention about Carlton, you mentioned their rookies. You look at all the clubs that are rebuilding at the moment. You got St Kilda, you got Western Bulldogs,
Yep.
Melbourne, or even GWS to name a few, building still. They've all given their gun rookies games, and you see the impact that has had. Jackson McRae is turning it on for the Bulldogs. Luke Dunstan is looking like a absolute, like a future gun
We will
for
talk
the
about
Saints.
this later as well.
Yeah, and GWS, Josh Kelly, he's just got his Rising Star nomination.
Yep.
It's working well. But Carlton seem to be stuck in this limbo period where they're not really sure whether they're going for the 8. They're not really sure if they're ready to rebuild. And it's really hurting them. That is equaling big shellackings at the hand of the Bombers.
They look like they're afraid to play these young kids.
Yep.
I mean, I'll throw back to round 1 with Essendon. They played 3 debutants.
Yep.
And look what happened in that game.
Yep.
They grew with confidence.
And they're still playing debutants. Jason Ashby got a game.
Absolutely. So, yeah, they got to play these kids. They just have to. I think Patrick Cripps had 31 disposals on the weekend in the VFL. Over half of them were contested. So he's a contested ball winning machine. It's exactly what Carlton
There's
did
your
at the
answer.
moment.
Now,
Anyway, there is another team in this game.
this was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. Melbourne versus GWS. All credit to GWS for getting the job done in the end. They were brilliant with their tackling. We'll talk about that later. Melbourne, not up to scratch. What do you think, Vinay?
I've got one word to describe Melbourne's performance. Fortunate.
Fortunate.
And the reason I say fortunate is because if it was not absolutely, if that was not an absolute bathtub of a field to play on,
Yep.
they would have lost by so much more that every Melbourne fan, and they know it, I think, they know that they avoided an absolute canning. Their tackling, get this, they had 40 less disposals and they had 40 less tackles.
We mentioned this earlier. It's just a sure sign that a team is...
That's unbelievable. 40 less tackles.
And it's not just the fact they had less tackles. When they did try to lay a tackle, I will word it that way. They tried to lay a tackle. They get one hand and it would just slip off. There was no grabbing in the jumper. There was no wrapping them up. There was just attempting to put pressure on the ball carrier. It was terrible.
It's just always Nathan Jones to me, that midfield. Dom Tyson's looking good, but his tackling needs a lot of work. I think he only laid 2 tackles. Nathan Jones, you got Adam Treloar on the other side, 11 tackles or something? 14. And, it's just Nathan Jones who ticks all the boxes for that Melbourne midfield in terms of attitude.
I think we spoke about last week that Melbourne isn't just going to be a quick fix under Paul Roos.
Yep, fair call. Yep.
We saw a bit of improvement in that NAB challenge, but we haven't seen it in the season where it really counts. That's the big problem. We haven't seen improvement where it counts.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to see it. We have to see some kind of improvement. Even if they don't win, they lose by 10 goals or something like that. We got to see bits of play that we can see a future at the Melbourne Football Club. But at the moment, I can't see a future. I just can't see a future.
Now, boys, who is going to win the wooden spoon? Sorry, who's going to win this week?
Just slide that one in there.
Yes.
Slide it in.
Who are we tipping?
Oh, Carlton can't lose, surely. They just can't lose. Surely.
But Melbourne coming off these terrible performances.
Carlton by 20 points.
However much they win by.
Flip a coin. I don't know. I've got Carlton by 24 points. I think they will. Mick Malthouse will find something out of that team, surely.
I will say that Carlton, their poor performance has been amplified by the killing Essendon gave them. They were actually, let's not forget that they were winning against Port Adelaide for 3 quarters, and they looked pretty good against Richmond. They almost came back and stole the match off them. So, there is hope there for the Blues. They're not completely lost. They haven't been smashed 3 times in a row. Whereas Melbourne, on the other hand, Yes, they have been absolutely outplayed 3 times in a row. So I'm going to tip Carlton by about 50 here. I can see them just running all over the Ds.
Port Adelaide versus Brisbane, Saturday afternoon at the wonderful stadium. It's the Adelaide Oval. Last time these two teams played, it was round 18, 2013. Port won by 9 points in what was actually quite a good game. What are your thoughts, Josh?
I tell you, I love the Adelaide Oval as a football ground.
Yeah,
It's becoming my second favourite in
We've
the
said
competition.
it every week.
I mean, how good did it look on Saturday?
Oh, it's a deck.
Fantastic.
It is a deck.
All right, Port Adelaide. They were pretty good up to half time against North Melbourne.
Up to
Probably three-quarter time. Yeah, they were playing
absolutely.
quite well.
They led by 15 points halfway through the last quarter. I don't know what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
they lost Angus Monfries to
Twain.
to a very serious hamstring injury. What it looked like. He has scans tomorrow.
That could have been a big turning point in the game, actually. Running into an open goal to put them, 21 points up? Or
He was
something.
best on ground at that stage. So Chad Wingard also went off with an ankle injury as well.
He did.
They had their injury concerns a little bit, but Ken Hinkley and Darren Burgess, the fitness guru down at Port Adelaide, have always said that Port Adelaide is the fittest side in the competition.
Yep.
And they showed that to an extent, but just with those injuries, we're probably overrunning the end by North Melbourne.
Yep.
Something that really worried me about Port Adelaide was before the game, there was this big pump up about their identity being that they were such a good running side.
Yeah.
But Vinay has made the point, we'll talk about this in a moment, that in the last quarter, they ran out of run.
Yeah.
This is
Quite literally.
This is their biggest attribute. This is their last quarter specialists. This is the reason they made the 8 this year, the reason they're such a good side. And against North Melbourne, it just didn't work for them.
It's almost ironic. I mean, it's ironic because North Melbourne were the side last year that frequently ran out of run and ended up having the game stolen off their hands by countless sides. Whether that was Adelaide, Hawthorn, Geelong, you name it, they ended up screwing it up in the last quarter. Port... guys like Jared Polek, who provide a lot of that outside run, they went to sleep in that last quarter. He did not have a touch in that last quarter, which is disappointing because that's when you need your players to lift. That's when, as Josh said, I think last week, that's when you need not your best 3 to lift, but maybe your last 3 to lift because that's what wins those kinds of games. And that's what happened with North Melbourne, I should say.
Yep. Brisbane, what's the word I'm going to use to describe their performance?
Disappointing.
Pathetic.
Disappointing. Rockcliffe was absolutely fantastic. He's the only shining light in that game.
Yeah.
35 disposals, 3
goals. And a lot of tackles.
Almost equal to Ablett. In
Pretty much, yeah.
Absolutely. We gave him 2 votes on the page because obviously team result doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's about the individual performance. And Rockcliffe was clearly the second best player on that ground.
Oh, for sure.
So I think he needs a lot of support. I've been really disappointed in Jack Redden this year. I really thought he'd maybe step it up another gear. He's been okay, but I just thought he may go to that next level.
They've used him. He tagged Ablett for most of the game. Didn't really work out well, but I think Justin Lepich is trying to do one too many things. He's tried Rockcliffe as a forward, a tagger, and now he's got Redden as a tagger. Just let them play their natural roles for goodness sake, Justin, and they'll get you something. Dane Zorko, every time he plays midfield, he destroys it. He has 27 disposals and a couple of goals, yet he persists on playing him forward and depriving him of that impact. Put him in the midfield. Use these players where they were drafted to play and stop trying to be so creative with a team that is struggling to fend off bottom 4.
You putting your hand up for a coaching position next year?
I tell you what.
I think also we're going to see Brisbane's depth tested.
Yeah.
They've lost one of their best midfielders in Daniel Rich today for the year. ACL gone. He's going to need a full knee reconstruction. Gives an opportunity to another young kid. Probably that kid's going to be Nick Robertson.
Yep.
A very similar player to Daniel Rich.
Pick 33, I think he was last year.
Pick 33,
correct.
yeah. He's
Western Australian.
191 centimetre, 91 kilos. So he's got that ready-made body for AFL football. He'll slot straight into the midfield, I think.
He's very, very tough, and he spent the majority of the championships playing as a rebounding defender.
Yeah.
But, he's been training with the midfield group, so I think that could be a good addition, as you say, Josh.
Now, Broadbent for the Power, before we move on, he was very, very good.
Absolutely. He kicked one of a very important goal,
it was a great goal
late in the game. I think he kicked it from, 60 metres out or something like that.
Centre square pretty much.
He's come out of sight in the last probably 2 years, since probably Ken Hinkley's come to the club.
He has, yeah.
He's been able to get the best out of Broadbent, has Ken Hinkley. So he's been fantastic and definitely improved his game. Probably in the top 5-10 players at Port Adelaide now.
Yep. Who are we tipping?
Port Adelaide comfortably. Comfortably.
How comfortably?
10 goals.
10 goals.
That is very comfortable. That's an armchair ride. I am going to give Brisbane some credit. I think Rockcliffe is a good... I say this every week, don't I?
Yes.
I say that I think Brisbane is good because they're not a bad side. I think if Lepic gets his act together, they could pose a threat. But I'm going to say Port Adelaide by about 5 goals.
I think with Rich gone, they could be in a lot of trouble this week and in future weeks. And I'm going to say Port Adelaide by 50 points at Adelaide Oval.
All right, boys, moving on. It's the GWS Giants versus the Western Bulldogs at Star Track Oval, formerly known as Manuka Oval. The last time these two teams met, it was the Doggies by 4 points in a tight contest. What do we think?
Very tight contest. GWS, as we mentioned earlier, they had 45 more tackles than Melbourne. They really turned up to play in that second half, especially. What do you think, Vinay?
GWS, I think that game was sort of like it was sort of like Port Adelaide in the third quarter against North. Although GWS were ahead, but they should have been ahead by so much more. It was only a matter of time before, the lid flew off and they went up by about 5 goals. Melbourne were just succumbing to the easiest clearances. They were giving away countless turnovers. It was just easy for the Giants. And if conditions weren't so tough, they would have done it by a lot more. I think they've got a good opponent in the Dogs who've shown that they're here to play. They beat Richmond when they were heavily, to not use a pun, the underdogs. But it'll be it'll be an interesting affair, I think. Both these sides... you look at it and they're both, bottom of the ladder kind of teams, but this will be a very, very good game to watch.
Now, one player for GWS, Josh, who really stood out was Adam Traylor. He was amazing.
Josh,
You took my words. I was going to say there's one player from each side that had unbelievable games last year. One of them was Adam Treloar.
14 tackles, 11 clearances.
33 disposals, 11 clearances, 14 tackles and a goal.
Wasn't it 2 goals?
I think it was 1.
Okay.
Team of the week in consecutive rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. He was absolutely enormous. The other one was Tom Liberatore, 24 disposals, 12 clearances, 12 tackles, and 2 goal assists. 14
contested
possessions as well.
Oh my goodness.
These two are just going to be stars of the game.
Definitely.
If not already. They're just going to get better and better. I love watching the both play. I love watching contested ball winners, and that's exactly what both these two are.
And a lot of people say, oh yeah, they're good, but then eventually they'll get enough. They'll be so good that they'll get a tag, and that's it. No, because the reason I say is because both of them, they thrive on their inside ball. It is very difficult to tag and curtail the influence of an inside ball winner, which is why guys like Ablett, Selwood, they always have good games because they Dangerfield, Pendlebury, they can get their own ball, and that's why they succeed. And these two are nothing short of that. They've shown that they can get their own ball.
How about the super sub for the Dogs? It was brilliant.
He does it again.
Came on, kicked 2 goals, kicked the winning one. The one from the free kick. The free kick was there, absolutely.
Definitely there. Yeah.
Richmond fans can't complain about that one.
Yeah.
And in clutch play, he comes on and he kicks goals. But I want to pose the question before we quickly move on. We're running overtime as usual. Is it time Daniel Giansiracusa sheds the vest?
I thought you were about to say, is it time he retires? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I asked a Western Bulldogs supporter about this, the Western Bulldogs writer on the page. He tells me that he likes being the sub. I don't know. He's a star. Come on. Like, every time he comes on, he has more of an impact than some of the players that actually played the whole game.
But on one hand, I'm going to pull you up here. You guys are saying about Carlton that they should accept that those players, even if they're giving good performances, should step aside for younger players. Western Bulldogs, they showed with Daniel Cross last season that they're more than happy for some of their legends of the club to step aside and let young players step up like Liberatore did last year. I think Giansiracusa taking the vest each week, having match-winning roles in the vest, is allowing their young stars, like Jackson McRae, who was very good on the weekend, to take that next step and rebuild for the next premiership window.
The difference I see with Carlton and the Bulldogs, though, in regards to Giansiracusa and Carlton's older players, G's having an impact at the moment. The older Carlton players aren't.
Yep.
That's the difference. G is coming on and kicking goals, whereas the Carlton older brigade, I'll say 30 and over, aren't doing that role. And one of them's Jared Waite. He's not kicking goals at the moment.
He missed a goal from about 2 metres out right in front, I think. He was running into the open goal and he just...
But this is the GWS versus Bulldogs preview.
I think one thing that we do need to mention is that the Bulldogs, one thing that really says you do need to play Gia is their forward line right now. You got to play Gia in Syracuse. I mean, their forward line has been okay. I will say that it's not been as bad as we thought it might be. But when you've got such a good forward who can kick 2 goals in the space of, 15 minutes, why would you not give him that whole game? I think he's kicked 4 goals once as the sub.
Yep.
Let him start down.
Now, who are we tipping?
I'll be tipping the Giants.
The Giants.
The Giants. I reckon they can go 3-1.
Interesting.
3-1 by 1 point. Not too confident, but I'll tip them.
I'm going to go the Bulldogs. They showed me that they can run out a full game against quality opposition. They've got the fitness in the legs, and I think GWS are a good side, but again, their ability to finish out games is their only concern. They faded away against St. Kilda, and I think they'll do the same here against the Bulldogs. Bulldogs by 10.
Jeez, the deciding tip here for the Beyond the Boundary verdict. I originally had the Bulldogs. I think I'm going to stick with them. 10 points, I'll say. They were pretty impressive against the Tigers. They've knocked off a pretty big scalp there. I think they'll win.
All right, boys. I'll ring the bell for round 1. It's the first
no.
in-house
Here we
battle
go.
of the year. Boys, off you go. It's Geelong and the West Coast Eagles.
Where's it being played, Nick?
At
It's being played at the
Simmons?
House of Pain. On
It's not
Saturday
Simmons,
night.
Josh. It's the House of Pain, apparently.
Last
check out the
time,
run sheet, right?
last time these two teams met was 66 points to Geelong at Patterson Stadium.
How many points was that?
Ding,
Vinay?
ding, ding.
Vinay, how many points was it last time? Was it 66 in Perth?
Moving on to the game, I think to be honest, I think West Coast are very vulnerable at the moment. How's this for a week at the West Coast Eagles Football Club? Beau Waters, he's out for the season. He's done.
Yep.
It's okay, mate. It's okay.
He messaged us saying he wants some time away from football.
I
this week
did.
when he
I
heard
was
that.
very, very disappointed at the time.
Anyway, go on.
And so Beau Waters, he's out for the season.
Yep.
Mark Lacroix, he's broken his arm again. He's out for 6 weeks.
You're kidding.
Especially after he had a start which looked like he was in All-Australian form.
Yep.
He's done. Chris Maston is out for 2 weeks. Luke Shuey, arguably our number one or one of our best midfielders so far this year, he's done for a week. He's been done by the MRP. Thank you very much. And Scott Selwood, probably our best midfielder at the moment.
Yep.
And along with him, Shard Wellingham, both not certainties to play this week due to injury. That's more or less, I think, 5 or 6 of our top 10 players that have vanished into the injury ward or
Are you
the
going to field a team on Saturday?
suspension. It'll be a tough one.
You're underrating Matty Priddis there. You've named about 3 midfielders above him. I reckon Priddis is your best midfielder.
In my book, Scott Selwood's probably our best midfielder, but Priddis is probably, he's up there. But one of the things I do want to mention is that Geelong, they went over to Collingwood, to Melbourne, playing at the MCG with, a pretty
Victoria Park,
shaky
wasn't it?
pass. They hadn't beaten Collingwood there in a bit, I think, in a while.
2011
games,
grand
yeah.
final.
Yep, there you go. But then they lifted, and some of their players really put on a prolific effort. And I'm going to let Nick take this because Tom Lonergan was one of the talking points, and he's going to go to Josh Kennedy. So,
I will.
Nick
I'll
Geisen.
start with Tom Lonergan. Tom Lonergan, I think I will say he played the best game of his career. Tom Lonergan is one of the most underrated defenders in the competition. He comes out each and every week, literally risking his life with that kidney problem that he had. And his performance, the effort he put in, the bravery he showed in those contests, it was amazing. He kept Travis Cloak to absolute peanuts. He had 13 1%ers, most of which would be spoils. Travis Cloak could not get his hands to anything. I think his only mark was, his only damaging mark was about 60 metres out, and it went nowhere in a damaging position. Tom Lonergan just gave him no space whatsoever. He was brilliant. Other players who were very impressive, Joel Selwood, he's the only player who's been in the team of the week each week. Just wobble just there. And the taggers, we had 3 of them this week. One of them, not too impressive, I won't name him. But
Josh
Caddy.
Caddy. Ding.
Cameron Guthrie kept Pendlebury to respectable numbers. I think,
A respectable 26 disposals, Josh.
hey, he's been on fire early this year. Tell me he hasn't been on fire early this year.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. He has been very good. Yeah.
Pendlebury's impact wasn't as good as what it's been the last few
that's
weeks.
fair
And
enough, yeah.
that's what Guthrie did. He nullified his impact.
Yeah.
5 to 10 of his touches were actually in the back line, Pendlebury.
Yeah, he had to. Well, it tells you a lot if he has to go run back there. to
He
get
and,
the ball, so.
he and Swan actually had to get uncontested possessions in the back line to try and run their way into the game. Hall and Smith was the other one who played as a tagger, and they were both very good. And last of all, it was, where have I lost it? It was Tom Hawkins who kicked 4 goals, including the clutch goal to seal the game. Very impressive.
I think it'll be a very interesting battle. Geelong have repeatedly been tested in terms of depth, and every time they've pulled up and showed us that they do have the depth. West Coast last year, they got tested for their depth, and they came out with a big fat F. They didn't really do that well, but I think new coach, new structures, and also, West Coast have got some great leaders on field. You mentioned Matty Priddis, you mentioned Dean Cox, who's not only playing, but he's also the ruck coach for West Coast. They've got some enormous leadership potential. And we were talking about this before. A few players do not make a team by any means, regardless of who they are. So you never know. It is at the House of Pain or Simmons Stadium, as it's more commonly known. But I do think that Geelong have a huge edge here, especially brimming with confidence coming off a interstate defeat over Collingwood.
I must say as well, big congratulations to Dean Cox, who becomes the games record holder at the West Coast Eagles this week. Yep. So they'll be looking to put in a big effort for him.
Something we haven't mentioned. Both these teams are unbeaten. This could be a pretty vital game.
The battle at the top.
Tips?
Who are we tipping?
Guess first.
Guess who I'm tipping, Josh?
Geelong.
It'll be 40 points by the Cats. It was 22 originally,
but
I've heard some pretty...
Josh, check. Look at that.
It was 22 originally, but I've heard some pretty major outs from the Eagles.
Not going by the run sheet as usual.
No. I think we'll get it done quite comfortably. Yep. What do you think, Vinay?
Look, I think West Coast, their depth has improved. The players that were thrown into the deep end last year have got a good pre-season behind them. They've had a few NAB Cup games, and I definitely do think that they're up to AFL standard. Whether they're going to be able to match it with the might of the Cats at Geelong is another question altogether. I'm going to say Geelong by about 20 points.
Just before I give my tip, just quickly, give us a couple of names who could come in to replace those players.
I think Brant College will stay. I think there have been numerous players in the VFL that will probably get a gig.
Waffle
that'll get a gig. Will Schofield is one of them. He'll definitely come in.
He played.
Yep, he'll play on field. He won't be the sub this time. Yep. Dom Sheed was spectacular 2 weeks ago. He had 27 disposals and 2 goals, and he's running amok down there, so they've got to get him a game. And do not be surprised if you see guys like Blaine Wilson or Adam Carter also get games.
No worries. My tip. Sorry, those outs are just too big, mate. Just too big. Geelong will get up by about 47 points.
Wow, that's more than I tipped him by. That's his
7 points. Well,
P.S. Scott Selwood is better than Joel Selwood.
Moving on, the next game
can we touch on that?
No. Next game is Gold Coast versus Hawthorn at Metricon Stadium. These two teams met was at the MCG, and Hawthorn got up by 26 points, where Gold Coast actually led at 3/4 time. So.
Gary Ablett had a decent game, would we say?
I'm getting tired of talking about Gary Ablett. If we're going to mention how much of a god Gary Ablett is, then...
I tell you what, people.
He's speechless.
I don't know what to say. I'm telling you, I don't know what to say anymore.
I tell you what, people, appreciate greatness. Yeah. Because that is exactly what we're seeing at the moment.
When he retires...
We may not see another one like him, so
correct.
Appreciate every single game that he plays.
I'll tell you what, BT regularly confuses Alan Christensen with Stephen Motlop. I reckon he's going to start confusing Ablett with Zeus. Ablett's that good at the moment.
With Zeus?
With Zeus.
I think we might start confusing Zeus as Gary Ablett, to be honest.
All right, moving on to the game.
Moving away from Greek mythology, all right.
The Gold Coast Suns got a comfortable 53-point victory over their arch rivals in the Brisbane Lions last week.
They hammered them.
They were pretty impressive.
They were very, very impressive. Brisbane never looked like winning that game, ever. Every other side that lost at one stage looked like maybe there'd be a chance, apart from Carlton. Every other side looked likely at some
and
stage.
Melbourne.
No, Melbourne hit the lead at one stage.
Anyway, back to this game.
The Gold Coast, Brisbane never looked like winning, ever. And that is just how good Gold Coast played. Let's not get into Brisbane here. But anyway, their attacking run was impressive. And the comments that we've made about all their midfielders contributing, Prestia, Swallow, they were just
every week we run off these.
Every week
we did last week. We did last week.
You forget about Prestia in his like assisting role, and other teams are realising that it's not all Ablett. One thing I do want to say, Isaac Smith, the Hawthorn wingman today, said in an interview that he has no idea how Hawthorn will curtail Ablett. And Al Clarkson has gone on record in the past saying that tagging Ablett is a waste of a player because he's going to get the ball anyway. So you may as well try and use that extra midfielder. So he is in for a big week. Is big Gaz, man.
The Hawks, Nick, they demolished
Fremantle.
Punished
Fremantle.
Put them to the sword.
Took the words out of my mouth, Vinay. They put them to the sword. Without McAvoy. Coming up against Sandilands.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy, big boy.
Does his missus call him that?
You never know what's going to happen.
We do want to reiterate this is a family show, yes.
But Hawthorn were extremely good. They did not let up. They were relentless. What do you think, Josh?
Absolutely. That first quarter was something else. Something else. I haven't seen Hawthorn play that well for a long time.
Yep.
You got to remember, Hawthorn, as we said, had their players out as well. McAvoy, Sewell,
Stratton,
Lake, Hodge.
Hodge, yeah, it's a big one.
They had their names out as well. What's going to happen when these guys come back in?
Oh, Jesus.
I tell you what,
They're going to win by more.
My undefeated call at the moment isn't looking too bad.
He's looking very good. I was at this game, boys. I did go to this game as a neutral just to watch it. I was expecting some excellent football, some hard fought, but Hawthorn just made Fremantle look very, very poor. What are our tips this week?
Hawthorn, can't go past them. I know we said this Metricon Stadium's a bit of a fortress.
The fortress that is Metricon Stadium.
But Hawthorn are a fortress of their own. Of their own.
Good call, Rickard.
Of their own.
He's
Hawthorn by 45 points.
I've gone Hawthorn by 30. I think Gold Coast have been very impressive up at Metricon. We keep saying it, but it's becoming a fortress up there. This is a serious thing we're saying now. This is
it is. It's not a joke.
We got laughed at the start of the year.
We got laughed at the start of the year. They haven't lost their
I got laughed at by the Richmond board for calling it a fortress.
Anyway.
I'm going to get my revenge. No,
Hawthorn
I'm kidding. We love you, Richmond board. We do love you.
Who are you tipping for that?
I'm going to go Gold Coast.
You're not.
No, I'm going to go Gold Coast. Hawthorn will get it done by about, 7 goals, 6 goals.
Sydney versus North Melbourne, Sunday afternoon at the SCG. Last time these two teams played, it was round 3, 2013, and Sydney won by 39 points. Now, Vinay, I have a bone to pick with you.
I'm looking forward to this.
How many goals did Lance Franklin kick on the weekend?
Hang on, play it in the corner.
Sydney by 35 points. Buddy will kick 4. I'll play it in the corner.
I think Sydney and North will be a very interesting... No. Look, it's true. Nick did call last week that Franklin would kick 4 goals and that it was too early to make a call that he wouldn't succeed at the Sydney Swans. And he did kick 4 goals and he did play very well. I'm not going to go against that.
I kept telling you, he's played in non-top
On that note, I will say that one game does not make a season. He's played 2 poor games and he's played 1 good one.
2 poor games in torrential rain.
So it is still 1-2. It is still 1.2.
He comes out into the beautiful sunshine of the Adelaide Oval.
Once he equalises that and, Josh, once he performs on a more consistent basis, then I'll be getting on the Buddy bandwagon. Until then... He's got to keep lifting for me.
I feel like I'm in last week.
Yeah.
Luke Parker, very impressive.
I absolutely love this kid. He is an underrated gun.
He's
a gun. I don't use that word very often when describing players, but Luke Parker is a gun.
He is a freak.
26 disposals, 4 goals, 9 clearances. Was just absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. Team of the week.
Team of the round.
And he tackles like a monster as well. Let's not forget.
He does. Yeah. He's going to be the player that takes over Jude Bolton's role.
Yep, I can definitely see that. Very good call, yeah. Fair call.
North Melbourne, pretty impressive. All of a sudden, they're 2-1.
The shin-bone of spirit.
It's
alive.
After that round 1 debacle, they're 2-1 at the moment. Still sitting outside of the 8 due to their poor percentage. But there's signs there, and if they can get over Sydney, who, okay, they got a win against Adelaide last week. Adelaide not in the greatest form, but might be the win that Sydney need to get their confidence up.
Not Melbourne.
No.
Sydney's win over Adelaide. Yep, go on.
But if North can pip Sydney and be 3-1, all of a sudden their season's not looking too bad.
Brent Harvey really stood up for North Melbourne. I think he's been very impressive so far.
He's playing like a 20-year-old.
He defies age, does Boomer. He continues to defy age.
There's only one problem I have with Boomer Harvey.
And what's that?
He runs one way.
He doesn't.
Oh, here we go.
Doesn't defend?
Well, look, we'll leave it at this.
Doesn't defend probably as much as he should, but he's 35 years old, so a little bit of leeway.
His run made Port Adelaide's run look like a...
I'm waiting for this analogy.
Trying to think of an analogy here that doesn't offend people, but I actually can't. So I'm just going to say it makes...
Just leave it.
Just leave it. Let's let it go.
Yeah, I'll just leave it. He made Port Adelaide's run look about as good as Carlton's finals prospects right now.
Ouch.
That's a big call.
That's a big call.
Big call.
Who are we tipping, guys, up at the SCG?
Sydney. It's their first game of the SCG this year.
MCG.
So a new stand as well. So they'll love playing there. A bit more of a crowd, a bit more home support.
Yep.
Can't go past Sydney. In Sydney. Swans by 23 points.
Yeah, 33 points. I've gone up the SCG. It's just no-brainer there. Lance Franklin will once again kick 4 goals. Vinay. And next week we'll be having this same conversation again. 2 games does not make a player. Anyway, Vinay, who is
It
it?
doesn't. 2 games doesn't make a season. As the last time I checked, there were 21, 22, 23 games. usually.
2 out of 4 isn't too bad.
Well, he's only done 1 out of 3 so far, so let's not get too excited.
Can we have a
I will tip Sydney. I think it's taken them a while to get going, but now they are going. They return to their, toying with the opposition kind of game style on when they played against Adelaide. And I think North is a side that could beat them, but I don't think they will. Sydney about 20.
St Kilda versus Adelaide. It is on Sunday afternoon at Etihad Stadium.
You child.
I'm going to hear about that throw. It was terrible. Last time it was round 8, 2013. Adelaide
I want to
won.
call Nick's parents and tell them he's misbehaving.
Adelaide won by 40 points. Boys, what do we think?
Adelaide are really disappointing at the moment. Really, really disappointing.
Really, really disappointing.
You don't agree?
No, continue.
3 times this year they've got themselves back into the game and
then just-
fallen away.
Yeah.
Fallen away and been demoralised. I mean, they took it up to your guys in round 1 down at Simmons Stadium, and they were in the game at 3/4 time.
They were.
Lost by 38 points.
Yeah.
Hit the front against Port Adelaide in round 2. Lost by 55. And again, got back to within 3 points against the Sydney Swans.
And then just
lost by 53.
I'm seeing a pattern here.
Do you think?
The number one thing that when I saw that game, and that whenever any team comes very close in the first 2 quarters, then just fades away, there's one thing that points to, and that's fitness. Adelaide have got very, very poor fitness at the moment. You looked at their match against Sydney. Sydney had a turnover and they were coming back very quickly, as Sydney do. Adelaide defenders were jogging. And after that goal was kicked, there were hands on heads. There were guys keeling over. They were absolutely cooked.
Spent.
They were a Thanksgiving lunch in that last quarter. They were just done. They could not run anymore, and that's something that's really going to hurt them. On that point, Matthew Jensch has been brilliant. Sanderson has reinvented his role, and his disposal efficiency this year at the moment is sitting at 92%.
That's a fair average.
And he's second on their disposal tally. So that's very, very impressive. Luke Dunstan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Now to put it to you.
This kid is something special.
The man child.
How did he slip to pick 18, I think it was?
19.
19? 18, one of the two. Is absolutely beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. 29 disposals. I'm the stats man tonight. 29 disposals, 7 clearances, 5 inside 50s, 2 goals for an 18-year-old in this day and age is something that is unheard of.
Oh, you make a good point, champion data.
Champion data. Thank you. Thank you.
No,
But
for sure, yeah.
this kid is going to be something special.
Yeah, for sure,
And it's not going to be too long until he starts receiving attention, because he's quickly becoming one of the main midfielders at St Kilda.
For sure.
I mean, you've lost Del Santo and Goddard, who played in that midfield.
Yeah.
And they've replaced them with these kids. And Dunstan is just a contested ball-winning machine. And he's going to be something very, very special. And Saints fans, if they aren't already, should be very, very excited about this young kid.
For sure.
Who are we tipping?
I'm going the Saints.
Saints?
I just can't tip Adelaide at the moment.
Me neither.
I can't tip them. I don't say it with too much confidence, tipping the Saints, but yeah, I just can't tip Adelaide with the way they're playing. St Kilda by 5 points.
I think on Sunday, the Sunday roast, which is the Adelaide Football Club, as Vinay put it, will get done by a point.
Yeah, look, I think Adelaide are actually favourites, believe it or not. They are favourites to win this game, which baffles me because St Kilda will win at Etihad. They've actually been quite good. I think they'll get it done by 20 points, comfortably.
Last game of the round, Josh. I imagine you're looking forward to this one. It's Fremantle versus Essendon, Sunday afternoon at Patterson Stadium. Last time these two teams played, it was one of the games of the season.
If not the game.
Essendon by 4 points. What do you think, Josh?
Gee, that was a good game. That was a really good game.
I really feel bad for Chris Mayne every time I think of that game.
Oh, I don't. Anyway, it's 2014. It's a new year. We go over to Patterson Stadium again. We've actually won our last 3 over there, which 5 years ago we've lost our last 10 there or something. So we've turned it around. We've turned our travel around, which is fantastic. We go over there as underdogs. No doubt Fremantle are going to come out and hunt the ball as hard as
blazing,
ever. They've got some injury problems. They've got Nathan Fyfe out for another week, so he's a big loss. Barlow's obviously not playing. There's injury cloud over Walters and Ballantyne. They will get Zach Dawson back, despite what people say. He plays a role and does it very, very well under Ross Lyon. Our boys last night was just fantastic. I said off air that I feel it was our best performance in 5 years. We haven't demoralised a good side. We demoralised the Gold Coast Suns 2011 where we kicked 15 goals in the first quarter. But we haven't demoralised a senior side like that for a very, very long time.
Yeah, fair call.
And the acquisition of Paul Chapman has been fantastic. He kicked 9 goals in 3 games. Brendan Goddard going forward last night. He played forward most of the night and was fantastic. Jason Winderlich, he is an underrated...
You've mentioned that, yeah, he is.
Forward.
Along with Jackson Merritt.
Jacko Merritt.
He could go all day.
I love this kid. I absolutely love this kid. He's taken Courtney Dempsey's role while he's out of the side and has played it very, very well. He's averaging 24 touches this year already. He had a career high 35 on the weekend. 11 of those, maybe 13 were contested. So he's not just getting around the back, getting the cheap kick. He's lightly framed, but he's getting in there and getting his hard ball, getting his own ball. And he sets up goals as well. He gets forward, sets up goals. He set up 2 last night. He's just going to be an absolutely superb footballer.
Now, I have a point I need to make about Fremantle. Round 23 of 2013, Fremantle came up against St.Kilda, against Ben McAvoy. Sandilands had 50-something hit-outs. They were missing Mundy, they were missing Fife, and they were missing Barlow in that game. You know, they sent Claremont across, basically. We all know that. They got done comfortably. Friday night, they were missing Barlow and they were missing Fife. McAvoy didn't play. Sandilands had an absolute field day, and they got absolutely done. So even with Sandilands having this ridiculously good performance in the ruck, the midfielders that come in to replace or step up to replace Fife and Barlow especially, but also Mundy when he misses, just aren't getting it done for them. That was against St Kilda in round 23 last year, and they weren't even competitive for 3/4 of the game against Hawthorn. And it's a very big concern if they're missing those stars.
It's funny how much can change in a couple of weeks. A few weeks ago, I wouldn't have entertained the possibility that Essendon could beat Fremantle at all.
Yep.
And now I will be tipping Essendon. It's very interesting, isn't it, the way that football works? But Essendon are scary to me in the sense that their game style is so similar to Hawthorn right now. So similar. They've got that high uncontested ball usage, then that really, really sharp kick going inside 50.
Yep.
They've got the midfielders that are kicking goals at will.
Chapman is on fire.
Yeah, they've got some they're looking as close to Hawthorn as any club in the AFL right now. And that is why they came so close to beating Hawthorn. They almost beat them at their own game. But Freo are going to be seeing double come Sunday. They're going to be like, didn't we just play this team? Then they're going to realise that it's Essendon that they're playing against. It'll be very, very interesting.
Can I throw a stat at you? I read during the week.
You can.
That Essendon and Hawthorn played each other in round 2 last week.
Yeah.
The last 6 times Essendon and Hawthorn have played in round 2, Essendon has made the grand final that year.
Is that you, Bruce McAvaney?
That's a fair stat.
Jeez, he's digging deep.
You are clutching at straws.
He's going deep.
6 in a row. It's a fair stat. Anyway, we're not talking about flags. I don't think we'll win the flag.
It is a useless stat.
I don't think we'll win the flag. Relax, people. It's fine.
Who are we tipping?
I'll go first. I am definitely going to say Essendon. They've proven that they can play at Patterson's. They beat West Coast there. They've beaten Fremantle there. And their game style is looking deadly. Paddy Ryder's back as well. So
Deadly,
hopefully. He should be back. Jake Carlisle can go back to being a forward/defender. He doesn't have to stand.
Whatever his role is in that
whatever he does, he can do it. So I think Essendon will get it done comfortably. I'm going to say they're going to win by about 20 points, boys. Yep.
Gee, I hope so.
Mark me down.
Jeez, you've thrown me here.
Yep.
I've been thinking Fremantle all week.
Essendon destroyed their opponent in the uncontested ball count. Fremantle suffered in the exact same way that Carlton did. Tip at your own risk, boys. Tip at your own risk.
Essendon by 2 points.
There we go.
Josh?
I'll tell you what, Essendon will like the space at Patterson Stadium.
Yeah.
They'll use their run. They'll use that chip and style, everything like that. I want to tip Essendon. I really, really do.
Do it.
I really do.
Do it.
But I just feel Fremantle are just going to bounce back.
Jeez.
All right.
I just feel Fremantle. I'll tell you what, I won't be disappointed if we get the win. I'd rather get the win than get the tip. But considering we're playing for sheep stations here, I'll be tipping Fremantle unfortunately. Unfortunately.
Well, that brings us to the end of another instalment of Beyond the Boundary, guys. Good stuff.
Absolutely. I thought it was a very in-depth show tonight. I really enjoyed it. I'll tell you what. But I'll tell you what, boys. It's going to be an interesting round of footy. There's plenty of games there that could go either way. I reckon looking at the games, almost every game could go either way.
Yep.
Could go
Maybe
either
not
way.
Carlton, Melbourne.
It's going to be a tough round for tipping. Wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting here next week and we got 4 or 5.
0 out of 9. No, we won't get 0 out of 9.
Or maybe with you two, but I'm doing quite well, actually.
Anyway, guys, as we said at the start of the show, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Helps us out a lot.
Inquiries, btbafl@live.com.au. I don't think we've received an email yet, but if anyone wants to be the first, jump on board. Our Twitter handles, you got at Geisen, at JRickard1991, at BKLax. I tell you what, boys, Valiant, fantastic again.
Thank you so
Are
much.
we announcing our news?
No, we are not.
Are you
We're
kidding me?
waiting
We're
for
putting a
another
lid on
week.
it. We're putting a lid on
Are
it.
you kidding me? We start in less than 2 weeks and you're going to keep me waiting.
Next week, we will announce, we have a very big announcement.
It is huge.
Josh is jumping out of his skin to talk about it.
Do not miss
Two
it.
of the best North Melbourne footballers to play the game.
What about
We don't know what he's talking about, to be honest.
I don't
We're-
even
yeah,
know.
we have
They're involved.
Thanks
We
to our
have no
producer,
idea.
Justin Westhoff. We will see you next week.
Jeez.